Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
We're getting to some pretty interesting stuff today.
Yeah.
It's Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis.
Hmm.
And I think this will be a really interesting one to kind of pick apart.
Definitely.
And yeah, so this novella, it was published in 1915, and it's considered like a classic
You're right.
in absurdist literature.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get too,
Yeah.
bogged down in all
We
the
don't have to get into all of that.
literary jargon and stuff. We're going to try to make this
Right.
interesting and applicable to
Well,
everyone today.
yeah, and I think that's what's so fascinating about Kafka in general, is that even though he was writing, over 100 years ago now,
Yeah.
his work still feels so relevant today. He was writing about alienation and bureaucracy and like this search for meaning.
In this kind of like cold and uncaring world. And yeah, I mean, who can't relate to that?
I feel that
Right.
a lot these days. Okay, so part one of the Metamorphosis kind of throws us right into the action.
Yeah, it does.
We meet Gregor Samsa. He's a traveling salesman. And he wakes up and he's been transformed.
Yeah.
And not in like a good way?
Not in a good way.
Not like a superhero or anything.
It's funny because he actually like briefly thinks that like he's just had like a bad dream
Yeah.
and that he's going to wake up. But
Yeah, he's like, this is fine.
yeah.
This is just a bad dream. I'm going to wake up and it's going to be fine.
And then he's like, wait a second.
Yeah.
No, this is real.
He wakes up as what Kafka describes as like a horrible vermin.
And Kafka, he doesn't really waste too much time explaining
Right.
how or why this happened. Like he kind of just throws this into Gregor's like perspective.
Boom, you're in it.
Yeah.
This is your life now. Deal with
Oh,
it.
what'd you do, Red?
I know.
If you woke up
You don't know.
and you were a bug.
I mean, he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
He's completely, like, disoriented.
Yeah. And I almost picture it, I don't know, if you ever like
Right.
woken up with like an extra arm or you think you have an extra arm
Yeah.
or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Just that feeling of wrongness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I imagine. But
But yeah, like you said, times 1,000.
yes, exactly.
Hmm.
And Kafka does such a good job of describing
You
this
are
like
failure.
visceral experience and how like wrong Gregor feels in his body.
Yeah, and he uses such vivid imagery, too. Like, he talks about Gregor's armor-like back and his pitifully thin legs. And it's
Yeah.
just like, you can just, like, picture it.
It's not pleasant.
It's disturbing. It's meant to be disturbing. He wants you to feel
Yeah.
the wrongness of it.
And he does a good job.
It does.
What's interesting to me is Gregor's reaction.
Yes.
It's very...
Because you would think, you wake up as a bug, you'd be freaking out, right?
Yeah.
But Gregor is just worried about, like, being late for work.
Right.
He's worried about what his boss is going to think. And it's just like this,
And his family?
yeah.
Like, what is his family going to think?
It's this perfect blend of, like, absurdity and relatability. And I think that's what makes it so brilliant.
Yeah.
Because
We've all been there.
right, where we're so caught up in our own little anxieties and obligations
Yeah.
that we can't see the bigger picture. Gregor's situation is obviously extreme,
Yeah.
but that feeling of being trapped by our responsibilities,
Yeah.
by like the expectations of work and society, that's something I think we can all relate to on some level.
Yeah, definitely. And then it gets even more like complex when we start to think about how Gregor's family reacts.
No, yeah.
So his mom is horrified.
Yeah, she's beside herself.
His dad is disgusted
Livid.
and angry.
Yeah.
And even his sister Greet, who is initially like,
She's the only one who shows him any kind of compassion at first.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But then even she seems kind of
Yeah, she's repulsed.
repulsed by him
Yeah.
and burdened by this transformation.
Well, yeah, I mean, imagine, suddenly your brother is a giant bug.
Right.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah. So this is kind of where I think we start to see those like real Kafka-esque
Yes.
elements emerge in the story.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just about
Right.
a man turning into a bug, but it's about how this transformation
Yes.
really exposes just like the absurdity of the human condition.
Exactly. It's like all these masks we wear and
Yeah.
all these unspoken expectations that we have of each other,
Yeah.
they all just kind of fall apart when something like this happens.
Yeah.
It's like suddenly everything is thrown into sharp relief.
Yeah.
And you're forced to confront the absurdity of it all.
Yeah. And it makes you think like, how many times have we all felt like we're speaking a totally different language
Oh, constantly.
than the people that we love?
Yes.
And it's like they don't even see us.
Exactly. And Gregor's transformation, it just takes that feeling to
Yeah.
a whole other level. Like, Literally.
Literally?
He's a bug.
Yeah.
They can't understand him. He can't understand them.
Right.
It's like this physical manifestation of that feeling of disconnect.
It's so true.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. And it makes you think about how you would react
I know.
if you were in that situation. Like, how would you want your family to
Right.
react?
It's a tough one.
Would you want them to
I don't know.
accept you? Would
Yeah.
that even be possible?
Right. Like, where do you even begin to process something like that?
Yeah. And then in part 2, like you were saying about that disconnect,
Yeah.
that feeling of being isolated
Yeah.
really starts to, I feel like, become even more intense.
Yeah, it's palpable. Like, you can really feel it.
Yeah. And Gregor's like withdrawing, right? He's
Mhm.
finding comfort in like hiding under his couch.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, when you think about it, like, what a powerful image.
Yeah.
You know, this guy, he's literally retreating from the world.
Yeah.
Like, he's not just hiding from his family, he's hiding from everything.
Yeah.
And that space under the couch, it's like, it becomes this metaphor for his own, like, alienation. Like, the only place he can feel any sense of peace is in this, like, dark, cramped space.
Right. And while he's, doing his own thing, his family's kind of left to deal with.
Right. They're like, what do we do?
Yeah. What do we do now?
Yeah.
Because they're struggling financially.
Mm-hmm.
Gregor was the breadwinner, and now they have to figure it out.
Right. And that's where those like classic Kafka-esque anxieties come in, right? Like,
Yeah.
the pressure to conform, the expectations of society, all of that is just like bearing down on them now.
Mhm.
Gregor can't fulfill his role anymore,
Yeah.
and it just throws everything into chaos.
And it's interesting how each family member kind of reacts to that.
I think totally.
The mom, she's obviously torn.
Yeah.
She still loves her son.
Right.
But she's grossed out.
Of course. I mean, wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
It's a bug.
And then the dad.
Oh, the dad.
He's something else.
Who was kind of a passive presence in their lives before.
Right. Like kind of just there.
Yeah, and now he's like really angry.
Yeah. Like almost tyrannical.
Yeah.
Like he sees Gregor's transformation as this like personal attack.
Yeah. It's really interesting how Kafka does that.
It makes you wonder what's going on in his head.
Right. Like, what is he so afraid of?
Yeah.
Is it the unknown? Is it the change? It's hard to say.
And then there's Greet.
Greet's interesting.
Because she tries.
She does. She really tries to help him.
Yeah. And she's the one who's like realizing he's not eating.
Right. She's like, he needs something else to eat. He can't survive on this.
Yeah. She brings in all this different food.
Yeah. Like trying to figure out what he'll eat.
Yeah. Which is so sad because you can tell she cares.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely still love there.
But she's also so grossed out.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation.
Like, how do you deal with that, you know?
Right. Like, where's the line between empathy and, like, self-preservation?
Mm. And then we meet a new character in part 2.
Oh, yeah, the charwoman.
Ew.
Yes. What do you make of her?
Oh, she's great. She's like the opposite of Gregor's family.
Yes.
She's completely unfazed by him.
She doesn't care?
Nope. She calls him names. She threatens him.
She's hilarious.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's like she sees him for what he is and no sugarcoating it.
Yeah, she's just like, you're a bug. Whatever.
Exactly. And I think that's why she's such an important character.
Yeah.
Because she represents this, like, brutal honesty that the family is lacking.
Yes.
They're so caught up in their own anxieties and societal expectations that they can't just be real with each other.
He makes you wonder what Kafka was trying to say.
Like, what's the point of all these social norms if they prevent us from connecting with each other on a genuine level?
Right. We're told to be compassionate. But when we're faced with something truly different, we don't know how to react.
It's like, do we really accept people for who they are or just for how well they fit into our little boxes?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's a question we're still grappling with today, which I think is why Kafka is still so relevant.
So then, part 3, things are not, like, getting any better for the Samsa family.
Yeah, definitely not.
And they decide to rent out some rooms in their house.
Right, like they need the money.
To these lodgers.
Yeah, and these lodgers, they're like the epitome of like bourgeois society, you know?
Totally, like uptight and obsessed with cleanliness.
Exactly, and it's like they're this constant reminder of everything Gregor isn't anymore.
Yeah, and their presence just like adds to that suffocating atmosphere in the house, you know?
Oh yeah, totally. Gregor's like completely boxed in at this point.
Both literally and figuratively. And then we have one of the, I think, most like heartbreaking and beautiful scenes in the whole book.
Definitely.
When Greet, she plays her violin for the lodgers.
Oh man, that scene.
It gets me every time.
It's so powerful, right? Like, here's Greet.
Yeah.
All she wants is to create something beautiful, you know?
Yeah, and Gregor hears the music.
Yeah, and he's drawn to it.
It comes out of his room?
Like, he understands it on some level, even though he can't understand anything else anymore.
Yeah, like it's the only thing that makes sense to him.
It's like art, you know? It transcends language, it transcends everything.
Yeah, and for a moment, it's like there's this connection.
This little glimmer of hope.
But of course,
It's Kafka, so you know it's not gonna last.
yeah, it all falls apart.
Oh,
The
yeah.
lodgers are annoyed. They see Gregor, and that's it.
And Gregor's father just, like, loses it.
Yeah, he like pelts Gregor with apples,
I know, it's brutal.
which again, so symbolic, right? The apple, like this symbol of nourishment, of knowledge,
Right, of like...
turned into this weapon.
Yeah, it's like all the beauty and hope in the world just like curdles into this ugly, painful thing.
Yeah. And Gregor is basically left for dead.
He crawls back to his room, totally defeated.
And even Greet, who'd been trying to help him,
She's done.
she's like, he has to go.
It's like she can't even see him as her brother anymore.
Yeah, just this, it,
It's heartbreaking.
totally. And Gregor, he just kind of
Yeah.
accepts it,
Yeah, he just fades away.
dies alone in his room.
Yeah.
And then, like, the most messed up part,
Oh, I know.
the family's reaction. They're relieved.
Totally. It's like this weight has been lifted.
They go on an outing. They're talking about the future.
Like he never even existed.
Yeah. And it's just like, what was the point of all of this?
Right. Like what does it say about us, about humanity?
It's a pretty bleak outlook.
Kafka can be bleak.
Yeah. But it definitely makes you think.
It does, and I think that's the mark of a great book, you know? Something that stays with you, makes you question things.
Yeah. And the Metamorphosis, it really does that, doesn't it? It makes you think about alienation, about identity, about how we treat each other.
Absolutely. And I think it's a story that's more relevant than ever today.
Yeah, definitely. Well, on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. What would your metamorphosis be? And how would you hope the world would receive it? Until next time, happy diving.